Good afternoon, and welcome to Making the Case with Dr. Akande. I'm Dr. Yemi Akande, and each week on the program, we'll bring you conversations with established and emerging leaders from a broad range of organizations as they offer their views on pressing local, national, and international issues that impact Northeast Ohio. Welcome to Making the Case with Yemi Akande. My guest today is Dr. Heather Harris, who's Associate Professor of Business Communication at Stevenson University, and she's also co-editor of a book about the 2000 presidential campaign. I actually read an article that Dr. Harris had written that was published in The Plain Dealer and thought, she would be a really great person to have on this show. And I almost feel like this is part 2 of the interview because we've been talking off the air for a couple of minutes. But welcome to my show, Dr. Harris.
Thank you, Dr. Akande. A pleasure.
Yes. And, I should have started tape recording about 27 minutes ago, but I think we were able to establish what I think is certainly going to be a really great friendship. But let's talk about you. How did it all start for you? You wrote this article on Viola Davis, but I believe it goes much deeper than that.
Yeah. I was online and I saw the LA Times pictures with Viola Davis, with her natural hair, and I didn't even know who it was initially.
Me too. I didn't recognize her.
Right. The eyelashes, the kind of sepia coloring for the photos. I said, whoa, who is this?
Yes.
I said, Viola Davis. I said, impossible. Mm-hmm. I said, this cannot be. Where's the wig?
Yes.
I said, she looks extraordinary.
She does.
Right?
Yes.
So I got to put this on Facebook. So I put it on Facebook, and I expect to get tons of hits, right?
Mm-hmm. I did too. Yeah.
Nothing.
None.
Tweet.
Yeah.
Okay, nothing.
Yeah.
I still couldn't get it out of my head.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting down one day, and I said, just let me put my thoughts down on paper. And I said, maybe this could be some kind of commentary.
Yes.
So I write it. I sit down, for a few hours, and I work it out, and I say, let me see what happens. So I send it off to the Baltimore Sun, and they liked it.
Yeah.
And so I sent it off on a Thursday, I think it was, and it ran on the Tuesday, Valentine's Day.
Mm.
That's nice, huh?
Yes.
Valentine's gift to women all over the world to be themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it ran on Valentine's Day. And then, I got some nice feedback from people saying, I love what you said in the article. I feel the same way. I got it from men.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What were the reaction that you got from men?
He was like about 70-something years old. He said, I tell this to my family all the time. I wish I could see more women of African descent, with their natural hair. Mm-hmm. This article really affirms what I've been thinking and talking about for years. Mm-hmm. And then I also got feedback from an Afrocentric psychologist who also talked about the power of the article, or the power of the words in the article, to bring to our awareness the need to be more ourselves.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I have to say that the article actually ran originally in The Plain Dealer here on February 19th. Mm. But what you probably don't know, and I don't know this for a fact, but I imagine that it's part of the inspiration from reading your article, is on February 22nd, the first page of the Style and Taste section of The Plain Dealer featured an entire spread on breaking with the straight routine. Black women are rediscovering the beauty of natural hair.
Wow.
And so I think to a certain extent you're perhaps inspiration for that, because it's become really the talk. Perhaps we talk a lot about it within the African American community, but not necessarily public.
Right.
And Viola Davis then serves as the poster woman, so to speak, on all things natural when it comes to hair.
Wonderful. After the article, I was watching Oprah's Oscar show, and there she was again with her hair natural. This, show's going all over the world.
Right.
And she said, this is my hair, because Oprah said, your hair. She said, this is my hair. And then she went on to have the interview. And what I love about the whole Viola Davis story is it's very relatable, because she is doing in the public eye what many of us have done with our girlfriends, with our families, etc., talking about the desire for the journey, and
Right.
then talking about the journey itself, a return to our natural here with each other. But she's doing it with the world listening.
And, I think this, brings us to the issue of identity and just being comfortable in who you are, regardless of what society says is professional, for example.
Yeah, and I would even say identities, because is there one? Right?
Right.
Is there one? We have that flexibility, that fluidity to be different selves.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So to maybe confine us into one identity might be too confining,
Too limiting.
Yeah, too limiting. So I think what we're seeing with her, the ability to discuss it in a public forum,
Right.
might give it some legs, more so than talking to each other, over lunch or dinner or, on the telephone. If the momentum with regards to what she's done continues,
Right.
it might just disappear. But it's up to us.
That's true.
If it's important to us, then we have to look at what it really means.
You've done a lot of work in terms of identity just based on our initial conversation here.
Well, probably personal work on identity.
Personal work.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
let's talk about how did Dr. Harris get to now as Associate Professor of Business? Sounds to me like you've had a very interesting journey that I believe that my listeners can certainly learn from.
I had a shift when I was 11 years old. I'm born in Montreal.
Okay.
My parents are Barbadian. And so, I'm an immigrant in Canada. And first generation. And so at 11 years old, I was watching the news. And at the time, you had people like Jessica Savage and Barbara Walters. And I said, oh, this is what I want to do. I want to be a broadcaster.
Okay.
And my high school counselor, when I got to high school, I told him. And he said, Heather, Montreal, there were no blacks on TV doing that, really. He said, you might want to choose something else. And so, I did for a while. It didn't work out. And I eventually applied for journalism school at Concordia University in Montreal. And I went. And I finished the program. And when I finished the program, I did some writing in Montreal for a local community paper.
Right.
And then I moved to Barbados.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I moved to Barbados, and I was working as a TV, radio reporter, and weekend anchor for the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation. And after that, I got a call, and I was asked, do you want to come and work in regional Caribbean radio as a producer? And I said, yeah, why not? So I did that, and I really got an opportunity to travel throughout the Caribbean, the English-speaking Caribbean.
Okay.
Looking at different cultures and whatnot, because we were doing a series at one point called iCaribbean. So my countries were Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, Dominica, and Barbados.
Wow.
So I covered them. And then I got an opportunity to travel to Namibia that had just changed from being Southwest Africa.
Right, right.
To be a radio producer there for the Namibian Broadcasting Corporation for 6 weeks. And that was a fabulous experience.
What was, when you say it was fabulous, what was great about it?
It was 3 years after apartheid, and they were still going through the transition. So you had a lot of remnants, to say the least, of apartheid left. So even though you saw Africans now in positions of power, for example, at the radio station, because it's a national radio station, and at and in government, the Chamber of Commerce was still white. And of course, that's where the money is.
Right.
And I remember there was an incident where one of the ministers went to speak at a gathering of a group. I don't know if it was the chamber or another group.
Right.
She went to speak, and they didn't let her in because she was black. They didn't know she was their minister.
Oh.
So that's how much attention people were paying in this transition. You know, so I got a chance to talk to the president at the time. I got a chance to interview traditional healers. I got a chance to speak to people who refer to themselves as bastas. The name is interesting. They are people who were originally biracial, and then they kept up just dealing with each other. And so they remained at this complexion. And so they thought that they had created another nation within a nation, and they were appealing at the time to the United Nations to recognize them as a different peoples.
Wow.
Powerful.
Yes.
You know.
What shifted for you during that experience?
Oh, what shifted for me? I think a confidence in myself in terms of what I was able to do as a journalist. Because in Barbados, I have a friend, Trevor Hollingsworth, and he was the editor for our newscast. So when we would come in with the stories, we had to edit it, of course, and then he would put it on the big track for the show that evening. He showed me how to edit tape. It was the old tape with the splicing and the tape and the razor.
Right. Wow, that's really old.
Oh, yeah. So he showed me how to edit so that when I did it, I would actually get a natural breath in there. So my edits were smooth. Right?
Yeah, when you said that, I just remember a course that I took as an undergrad whereby, part of the tools of the trade was a razor-sharp blade.
Yes. So you had these razors and the tape, and you hold the tape in your mouth. My edits were smooth. I mean, you could get the breath. It was not jumpy. So I was excited. So I go to Namibia with this.
Right.
And I have this German producer. He wasn't the producer, he was a manager. So I go in and I get a story on a Herero festival, and the Herero are a group that they had some German in them. And so they had a festival every year where they would recognize the German ancestry as well as the African ancestry, and they would all be there. I went out with a friend, Celia, and she took me to the festival. I was doing a story on it, and I had my hair cut short because at that time I had it in braids prior to leaving for Namibia, getting all back to here and what it means and what it can do for you and not do for you.
Right.
And I cut it from the braids because I had to go through London, and they thought that black women from the Caribbean with braids were drug mules. So I said I did not want to be mistaken.
Right.
So I cut my hair off into a very short afro. Wow. And so I go to Namibia, and I meet this woman at the festival, the festival recognizing Herero and Germans, etc. And a Herero woman looks at me in her regalia and says, because Celia's asking the questions, and she says, well, why is she not talking? And I told Celia, I said, my ancestors were on a boat to the other side of the world. I might look like you, but I'm not who you are. And so that was a powerful moment. And also with the German radio manager, I did the story. I came back, I did the edits, and put the story together. When he heard it, he came into the newsroom. He said, Who did that story? and I said, I did the story. And he said, how did you edit that? And I said, like this. He said, no, you did not do it yourself. And I said, I can show you. I had to show him what I did. He did not believe that I was that smooth.
Wow.
Yeah, that I had that skill. Wow. So that, of course, bolstered my confidence in my ability. And it was wonderful. It was wonderful. It was sad, but it was wonderful. Oh, the best thing, the best opportunity I had was to talk to the former South African soldier.
Oh,
what
was that like?
Because he was in Namibia, and he was now part of the Namibian Broadcasting Corporation. And I said, how do you go from killing black people to working with them? I mean, and he said, what soldiers say? He said, I was a soldier. I had to follow orders. Right. Now that everything is over and I've had a chance to engage and converse with Africans, I see what happened wasn't right.
Wow.
But wow.
That's a very profound experience.
It is. I mean, he was the one that picked me up from the airport. I almost passed out when I saw him.
Wow.
Because I heard that South African accent. You're watching the news and everything, and you're seeing, woo. But I talked to him. And I think that's important. We have to have conversations with people in order to hear stories that we don't already know. you know.
Even break down stereotypes.
Well, this is it. I love this. I heard this talk online by a Nigerian novelist, Chimamanda Adichie.
Yes.
And she says there is danger in the single story. And so for him, as a South African soldier, I had a single story of his brutality, of his racism, of his disregard for Africans.
Wow.
But when I was able to speak to him, I was able to create a new story.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so important. When I visited South Africa years ago, I was there attending a conference, and I was in Cape Town. And there was something profoundly, it was a combination of happiness and sadness. And I remember wanting to visit one of the wineries there because, South African wine, one of the better wines.
Yeah.
And, someone told me, this gentleman that I met told me that, you know what, you really need to research some of those wineries before you visit. And I said, why? And, he said, some of the wineries actually pay the workers. And I don't know that this is still the case, but at least that's what I learned when I was there. Pay some of the workers half at the end of the month, half with, bottles of wine, and the rest in currency.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And, he said what happens is, when it's payday by just going to the hospitals and seeing how many women and children are there. And that left a somewhat bitter taste in my mouth that I decided that I was not going to visit any of the wineries while I was there. Because, I was caught off guard because it just wasn't my framework of looking at individuals who work at wineries, but it made sense within the context of, South Africa and the history. And as a result of that, what I ended up doing for the remainder of my time there was in having these conversations. So I ended up going to a nearby open market and actually conversed with some of the artists who were selling their artwork there, and then went to the mall, which was very American. I was very surprised, and conversed with many of the different shop owners and just finding out about their South African experience.
Yes.
And, I talked with South Africans who were of East Indian heritage there.
Yes, definitely.
And I was surprised by their candidness, because their candidness oftentimes, was like they were frustrated with how life was now.
Yes.
Post-apartheid.
But people will talk to you.
Yes, they will. And I only wish I had my radio show at that time to record that, but all I have are just pictures with many of the traders and the store owners talking about their experience. But let's hit rewind for a bit and ask you this question: what is your happiest childhood memory?
That's a good one. It's a small one, but it keeps coming back to me, even when I go back to Montreal and I pass that spot. I was 5 years old. I was coming home from kindergarten, and I had been trying to tie my shoelaces for a little bit. And I got to the corner of my street, and I bent down, and I tried, and it worked. And I was thrilled.
Wow.
That, for me, stands out. Something very simple, but to this day, when I pass that spot, I remember that moment. Tying my shoelaces at 5 by myself.
Yeah. Wow. That's great. I love it. Because it probably made you feel as though you were independent now.
It just made me feel accomplished.
Yes, that too.
It wasn't even about independence. It was just, wow, and it wasn't, taking one lace and folding it over and the other lace and folding over and putting the two together to get the bow.
Right.
No, this was the real thing. Make the bow, wrap one around the other, and bring the other bow through. That was serious business. That was serious business, and I was impressed.
Yeah, I'm trying to do a little rewind here to remember where was I when I could tie my shoes, and I think I perhaps was somewhere in Louisville, Kentucky, somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was big for me. The corner of Prudhomme and Sherbrooke.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So what would you say is the process to success? You know, a lot of people define success differently. I imagine that for you in your career thus far, you know, you've been very successful.
Thank you.
You know, what do you think is important?
I think it's ongoing, and I think sometimes we don't realize success when it happens.
Ooh, yeah.
I think sometimes we don't realize success when it happens. It's something that's ongoing. That moment, tying my shoelace, that was successful. That was success for me. Another moment, and you know, it was a sad moment, but it was a happy moment for me. My mom died when I was 14, and I remember the week after she died, I was trying to comb my own hair into cornrow, and I succeeded in getting these 2 cornrow plaits. So for the next, 3-4 years of high school, I had these 2 cornrow plaits that I could do myself. And that for me was success, and that also brought a little bit of independence,
Right.
because you didn't have to depend on someone else to comb your hair for you. And I was accustomed to her combing it for me. I mean, there was a ritual. She would either do my hair, wash it, and comb it, or my cousin would do it for me. My cousin Lorna would do it for me. And the ritual was, you get your hair washed, you dry it with a towel. We didn't have any hair dryer and blow dry and this kind of stuff. You get your hair washed, you put it in parts, and they dried it with the towel. And then when they finished drying it, they would part it into small squares and corkscrew it, which is, I guess, similar now to a Bantu knot.
Right.
And so then they would dry, right? And then once it dried completely, they would take that out. And so now, it's very easy to comb, and then you get it combed in cornrow, or just plaited in a style for school. And that was the ritual. That was so being able to comb my hair myself at 14. That was big for me. Another success, I think, was getting into journalism school. They only took 60 students a year.
Wow.
Yeah, and he said, "Well, what are you going to do if you don't get in?" And I said, "I'll be back again next year." And so they laughed, and I got in.
Tenacity.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I got that.
Yeah.
And then Howard was wonderful, because that was, for me, was success in so many levels. I graduated from their communication and culture program. And so I did my master's there and my PhD. And the professors, fabulous.
Yes.
The people that I met and became friends with, fabulous. The experience, extraordinary. I loved every moment of the work that I was doing there. And it was a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
But I would do it, I would eat donuts, and then I would complain that the dryer was shrinking my jeans.
Perspective, priorities.
So, those kind of things are things that I count as success. The Obama book that I did with Dr. Kimberly Moffitt and Dr. Catherine Squires,
Yes.
That I consider success, because we were ahead of the curve in at least in the academic circles, in terms of putting out something related to Barack Obama, who was then a senator. But there was something that I felt about him when I heard him speak at the Democratic National Convention. And then I was talking to Kimberly on the phone. I said, "This is big. We got to do something about it." And we did a panel, and then that panel turned into a conference all before the election.
Wow. You were really ahead of the curve.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I mean, an international conference at the University of Minnesota. Yes, and then the book. So those are the kind of things that I consider success, but also just good relationships.
Right.
Good relationships. That's, I guess, the most fundamental type of success, because when you have that, you're able to do almost anything else.
Absolutely.
You have your family, you have your friends. You have that, and then you're able to do the rest because you feel buoyed.
That's true.
You feel buoyed. So success is a continuous process. And when students get it in the classroom, it's usually after the evaluations.
Yes, never during the school year.
But they get it. I got an email just this week. A student said, "Oh my gosh, Dr. Harris, thank you for teaching us how to do so-and-so. We hated that exercise." And of course, they blasted me for it.
Right.
Right? But here she is in grad school saying, "Hey, this has been helpful."
Exactly. I always tell my students through the years, I said, you may hate me while you were taking my class, during my class, even after my class. But believe me, the lesson, it's almost like I've planted a seed. The lesson will not be realized quite quickly.
Right.
It takes years or even decades.
That's true. That's true.
So, I'm not doing this to be thanked today.
Correct.
I'm just doing this.
Or to be thanked ever.
Ever.
Exactly. Yeah, to be thanked. You just do it because it's something that you enjoy doing. You enjoy sharing, a perspective.
Right.
I tell them I'm not the oracle. This textbook is not the gospel.
Yes.
Question.
Absolutely.
I think that's important, yeah.
Yeah. So what would you say is the best and the worst advice you have ever been given?
Oh, the best advice that I've been given is to chill out.
Okay, fair enough. Yes.
That's the best advice. Chill out. I guess there are a number of pieces, because chill out and not to relax my hair.
Oh.
I was told when I was 12 years old, do not relax your hair. It will not be good.
Oh.
So the worst advice I got was advice from myself. I want to fit in. I want to be cute, so I'm going to relax my hair. So I go to the hairdresser, and she looks at my hair. She says, "Oh, my gosh, it's so thick. I don't know. Oh, we have to use super."
Yeah.
And I'm 18 years old, and I sit there, and she uses super. And, this is me, like everybody, like a lot of other people, not everybody else, but a lot of other people buying into the, this arbitrary beauty standard.
Yes.
You got to have bouncing and behaving hair, whatever it is, or shiny, whatever it looks like on the box of the relaxer.
Right.
And I got my hair done and came out, and the curls were fabulous. It was black and shiny, and I felt cute. And I went home, and, night came. I got myself ready for bed. I made sure to take my time and put it in those little curlers. I think it was the pink sponge curlers at the time.
Oh, I remember those.
Oh, yeah, some ugly things.
Yeah.
And I put my hair in those curlers, and I put my scarf on, and I went to sleep in preparation of another day of beauty. And I woke up the next morning, the scarf was off. My hair was in the curlers on the pillow and not on my head.
So much for that, right?
Yes. So my entire hairline was gone. Oh. And I had to take the hair at the top of my head and put it in a little bowl style until I don't even know when that hair grew back, really.
Yeah, the day after. Yeah.
Yeah, the day after the beautification.
Yeah, back to the basics.
Yeah, so the worst advice is the advice I give to myself usually. Yeah, going against my authentic self. That's the worst advice. It doesn't come from other people. Right. It comes from me saying, I know better.
Yes.
Let me try. Let me try this.
Yes. So true.
Yeah, I can't blame anybody else.
Yeah. So how do you wear your hair now in light of our conversation about Viola Davis and what she's become?
Oh my gosh, I have lovely fuzzy locks.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm learning to swim.
Oh, okay.
So they're nice and fuzzy, but they feel good. They look good, I believe. And I've had them for like 10 years.
Oh, wow.
I've had them for 10 years. I've cut them because they were heavy. But, I love to feel my kink.
Yes.
I think it's fabulous. I look at it and I smile. I don't play in it.
Right.
But but I'm quite satisfied.
Right.
It really feels like me. And I think, whether it's the hair, whether it's, body type, I am making peace with all of that.
Right.
With all of that, I just buy clothes that fit. I usually go shopping alone. Right?
Yeah.
I wear colors that I like. I do not buy skinny jeans. Right? You have to know what is for you.
Right.
Right? And so that's what I do. That's what I do. So the HERE journey really brought other issues into up to awareness for me. To make peace with those.
That's so true. I think it goes back to what you said earlier in terms of it's a conversation about identities.
Yes.
And not just one singular identity.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can't separate them, right?
Right.
They exist simultaneously, but we bring to the forefront the identity that we need at a particular time. It doesn't make us fake. It just makes us complex.
Yes. Complex yet authentic.
Yes.
So here's my final question to you. Let's fast forward to 35, 50 years from now.
Wow.
What do you think your legacy will be?
I think about that because someone told me, because I didn't have children, what would my legacy be? And I thought that was an interesting question. I didn't know children automatically gave you a legacy that was actually necessarily good.
Right. Yeah.
I just thought they were children who happened to come through you, or who you happened to pick up, but nevertheless raised to be whoever they are meant to be. So I thought about that, and I said, I was a little, taken aback.
Yeah.
But then I decided that I want my legacy, well, not even my legacy, but my current state, to be love. I want people to feel it. I want to radiate it. I want to constantly cultivate it within myself.
Right.
That's what I want it to be. Love and laughter. I like a good joke. I don't tell very good jokes, but I like it.
I can certainly believe the love and laughter just based on the conversation we've been having on the air for the past couple of minutes and even before we started recording. And I really want to say you truly are living the Dr. Harris authentic mission.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Pleasure.
This has been a delightful conversation.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And again, I want to thank our guest, Dr. Heather Harris, for joining me today on Making the Case. If you have questions or comments about today's program, please email them to mtc88.7@gmail.com. Making the Case with Dr. Akande is produced with the support of WJCU in University Heights, Ohio. Our theme music is by Alexander May. I'm your host and executive producer, Dr. Yamia Akande, inviting you to tune in next week at the same time for another edition of Making the Case.